maybe she's just honest. I don't know how I skated through. But since then, I've served as sorry, I told you I'm nervous. I've served as the secretary, vice chair, and chair. And just due to all of the horrific negativity, I just kind of ran out of gas on the side of the road, so to speak. And I resigned the chairmanship back in June. And I feel badly about that, put our new chair in a bad position, but he's doing an excellent job, and I know he's eager to work with you once he finds his feet. It's going to take a minute, but I'm still really involved in an advisory capacity, and I'm still your state committee member. So, I say that to segue into the topic tonight. I know what it is to be a very frustrated grassroots member who can understand the basics of the Constitution, understand basic human morality, and feel like my elected representatives are ignoring all of that. But I also understand the frustrations of leadership in the grassroots. My daughter is the election specialist in Calhoun County, and she spoke a couple months ago to a standing room only packed meeting of our general GOP family. She got up and gave what her mom thought was a fabulous speech about the importance of serving as an election worker. Not a challenger, but an actual inspector. There were so many heads nodding and atta girl and thank you for all you do. I found out later that 5 people at that meeting signed up, and it was humiliating to me. It was humiliating personally. And so I know the frustration that you face as a leader when people show up to rallies, they honk their horn, they wave the flag in the yard, but they don't do anything. And so I say all that to say that when this movement first started to remove Christina Caramo, I was absolutely not on board. Because the things that were coming to me first were her failures, her failure to perform. And as a grassroots leader myself, I know how frustrating that is. You can't raise money if people won't solicit donations, although as chair, that's your job. You can't have big walk days if people don't show up. You can't do a lot of things if people just come to your meetings and don't actually do the work. And so her failing to make her promises and meet her goals, that to me was not enough. So for full disclosure, I did not support Christina at the February convention. I had heard her impressively passionate speeches when she was on the road for her Secretary of State campaign. And it was so amazing to watch how she connected with the audiences. She was very passionate, she was well spoken, she presented very well. She had these Calhoun County Tea Party groups and our Republican group, everybody just raring to go. She fired us up so much. The problem is she's running for Secretary of State and I work in a clerk's office. That's the job I actually get paid to do. And she did not know what she was talking about with election law. And so I see the damage that is done when we talk about election integrity, but we don't understand election law and how the Secretary of State is limited, what powers they do have, what powers they don't have. And so I would just quietly say, she needs some coaching. And I was just rebuffed at every caution. I said, there are so many Republican clerks in Michigan. She just needs to find an advisory team to help her understand what they are allowed to do, how we can make legislative advances, and so forth. And all people cared about was her passion. And I get it. Passion is attractive. She's an incredibly charismatic person. But if we're lying to the voters so that they get more fired up for us, to me that's very disrespectful. I can fire you up with a lot of lies, but what I have just done is rouse rabble, right? Rabble is easy to rouse. That hashtag on Facebook a while ago, right? Don't be rabble. Rabble's easy to rouse, and I don't want to be that kind of person. I don't want to rouse you with false promises. So I didn't support her, but as soon as she was elected, I was still the chair, and I went to our executive committee, and I said, okay, look guys, you know she wasn't my first choice, but she's our chair now, and it is good for all of us, all of our candidates, all of our county parties, our district committees, for her to succeed. I said, so fundraising is going to be her #1 challenge, because she told all the donors to go pound sand, and they said, yes, ma'am. So I said, Mackinac is coming up in about 8 months. At that time, it was about 8 months away. I said, we're going to get better speakers if attendance is heavy and pre-sold out. I said, honestly, I might not be very excited about. I said to my very small group, I might not be very excited. Left that part out of the main group. And I said, we have to register for Mackinac, make your donation now, do everything you can to make this event a success so that our chair is successful, because if our chair is successful, our party has a better chance of being successful. And so I was all in, doing everything that we could locally to support her administration, because it was, at that time, our Michigan Republican administration. It isn't that I was ignoring the red flags. There were red flags about raising money. She failed to make those promises. How her administration was so far into giving favors, even money-related favors, to friends, that she was really out cronying the cronies. And I was on state committee under Bobby Shostak, so for me to say you're out cronying the cronies, it's kind of a high bar, sorry. Even though all that was true, I still didn't think it was good optics. We don't give the Democrats ammunition to shoot us, and I was not in favor of her removal. But there were several things that started to grab my attention as dangerous. And I don't want to get into the weeds, but first thing, there have been numerous campaign finance violations. I mean, gross, egregious campaign finance violations. Those reports are due here at the end of the month. Expect an onslaught from the Democrats. It's going to be ugly. And some of those, you know, I don't expect everybody to understand campaign finance law, but if I'm soliciting donations, I'd better understand the parts that are relevant to that donation, how it's obtained and how it is spent. Her administration was so incompetent on this level that the way she was seeking donations and the way she was spending donations are putting certain donors at serious financial risk. So that to me was, wait a second. I started to think, okay, maybe we can't have good-hearted people who are just not up to speed on the laws getting punished because they were advised badly. There were many, many, many eyewitness reports, people who've talked to me directly, who have brought a donor to her. All she had to do was meet with them, and they were ready to give. One donation was $300,000. I just heard about the other day from the person who set up the meeting. And if she didn't like every single thing about the person, she would rebuff for that meeting, not take the money, not meet with the donor. Now, again, money can't come with strings. I love the way, have I said Ron Paul yet tonight? I love the way Ron Paul deals with this. And the Bible, frankly. The bounty of the unrighteous is saved up for the righteous, right? Ron Paul says, if you're on one side of an issue and I'm on the other side and you want to give me money to fight you, I'll take it. You have less to work with, right? But you don't get to pull strings. Money does not always have to come with strings. Don't believe that lie. You just have to have a backbone as the person who is approving the disbursements. You don't let it have strings, okay? So those were some real patterns. And then the handling of Mackinac was kind of the final turning point for me in being supportive. I wasn't quite ready to get involved yet, but I was supportive of the people who were ready for her removal. I spoke personally to a donor who offered the same level of support they've been giving forever and ever and ever, and she would not accept it because it wasn't 10 times as much. You'll give me $10,000, I think you can give me 100. Well, then I don't even want to talk to you. Is he going to give me 10? He's not going to give me 10, right? That happened over and over again. And then just the understanding from having filed campaign finance reports that if you don't do it right, even an innocent mistake can cost money. Intentional mistakes can cost a lot of money, and egregiously intentional after warning mistakes can cost a whole lot of money, including jail time. And so this is a dangerous position to put people in. You cannot expect grassroots volunteers to understand everything about campaign finance. You have to provide some leadership in that. And not only was that not happening, but people were put in dangerous positions. And then she calls me a me-firster. I actually, everybody who donated, by the way, everybody who registered for Mackinac was a donor to the party. By definition, you have to donate to the party to get your ticket to go. They had a spreadsheet. Did you guys hear about the spreadsheet? They had a spreadsheet where they ranked all of the attendees to the upcoming Mackinac conference. And I got a 4. You see people on Facebook, they've got 4 in front of their face. That's what it refers to. Proudly announcing that there are 4. 4 means a me-first rhino who maybe could be talked into doing some low-level, meaningless work. And I thought, hang on, honey. I have been busting my butt as a volunteer, giving my time, talent, and treasure since before you could spell Republican, and I'm a me-firster. I don't get any money from this. This costs me money to do this. And so I was very offended. However, I'm not going to concede much to her tonight, but I'll concede this. What finally got me off my butt, and I apologize that it took so long, was when she filed a lawsuit to sue the trust that owns the Michigan Republican Party building in Lansing. And she sued Comerica Bank, saying that the debt incurred by the previous administration is not owed by her administration. Both of those things are so ludicrous that they stand a very good chance of being deemed frivolous lawsuits. Her lawyer is a joke. Every analysis I have seen of these lawsuits is just one lawyer after another saying, who does this? This guy, if he's not disbarred, it's a miracle. And here's the thing. So here, you can write me down as a me-firster. You can put that in your phone contacts for me. Number 4. Because the Michigan Republican Party is an unincorporated volunteer organization, the members are individually liable for court costs, fines, fees, penalties, etc. So far that puts me on the hook for about $8,000 personally. That's if everybody else pays their share. The lawyers that we've been conferring with say, hang on, this is going to skyrocket. If they keep doubling down, this is going to skyrocket. Now, Randy seems like a nice guy. I don't know him super well yet, but if he enters into a lawsuit that puts you individually on the hook for $8,000 each, feel free to call my cell phone. Okay, we'll find you a new chair.
Amen.
It's one thing. We would have had a defense. Those of us who could see from the outset, you don't sue a trust for ownership of a building that, I skipped an important part here.
They only want one.
That's for rent.
Yeah, for the year.
For the year. There are more costs, and I acknowledge that there are more costs, and fundraising is a problem, and I acknowledge that it would be expensive, but there's a whole lot of missing information there too. If state committee had had a vote, any member can call for a roll call vote on any subject, on any vote. We would have been on record, those of us who did not approve of that action, we would have been on record as having not approved of that action. and we would have had a little bit of legal covering. Now the law says we're still liable, but at least we would have had a little bit of legal covering. We begged her to bring this for a vote. She would not bring it to a vote. She did not let your state committee members have any say on whether your party got involved in these two frivolous lawsuits, and they are humiliating. I've got a stack of papers here. Believe it or not, with this whole stack of papers, none of it is a legal analysis of these two ridiculous lawsuits. For more on that, go to the YouTube channel Rescue Michigan, and you don't have to search Karamo. She's all they've been talking about for the last, couple of months. But there have been several lawyers on there who just pick these lawsuits apart time after time. So that brings us up to December. The three questions that most questioners are asking right now. Number one, was the meeting on January 6th to remove Christina Karamo? Was it executed according to the bylaws and therefore binding? If it was executed according to the bylaws, then whatever happened there happened lawfully. Okay? She had a different meeting after she was removed. She had a different meeting on January 13th. So the second question I get asked is, was the meeting on January 13th executed according to the bylaws, and was its outcome binding? And then the third question is, now what? I have about 2 minutes here and a stack of papers. This pack of papers, and I'll leave this here, or I'll have it available for. I do need to take these home. I'm running out of printer ink, and I have more speeches. This pack of papers you can pass around goes point by point by point by point through the January 6th meeting. We have photocopies here of people who signed to call a special meeting. We have photocopy of the petition they signed. We have 3 people now saying, I don't know, that 2-sentence petition was really hard to understand. We want to take our names off. You don't get to change your vote the day after the election. You don't get to. So you can see I am miffed because I signed to no fewer than 3 of these things, and they still left my name off. But I was, in case there are any Christina supporters here and you say, good job, Jeannie, you didn't sign it. I did. I'm not sure why I didn't make the copy. So there is at least one more name that didn't get on. We knew when we started this effort to remove her because of the egregious and dangerous activities that she was involved in. We knew this thing was going to be fine-tooth combed by the courts. This thing was going to be fine-tooth combed by the RNC. They do not want to get this wrong. This was going to be fine-tooth combed by the opponents, by her supporters. And so we had several lawyers, very high-profile lawyers. We had a $500 an hour lawyer look at this. That was fun. We had several parliamentarians look at this. Her own parliamentarian said that our meeting was conducted, properly noticed, and conducted in accordance with the bylaws. But we shouldn't have done it. So therefore, it's moot. No, it's not moot if you shouldn't have done it. It's moot if you did it wrong. But page after page after page of document. There is I did not put this PowerPoint together, but I printed this off so you guys can pass it around. If you're interested in her lack of leadership, I really wasn't. That wasn't enough for me, but it's on the first few pages. Then if you go back about halfway, it details point by point by point. Gives copies of the bylaw language and everything, showing that we did follow the bylaws. Second question. First question. At our meeting on January 6th, we removed her as chair and canceled the meeting that she had scheduled for the 13th. What happened was we had called back on January 2nd, December 2nd. We had called for a special meeting. We had we needed a third, but we had half of the state committee members sign a petition for a special meeting to consider her removal. And Dan Hartman, her general counsel's removal, because he's the guy giving this crazy legal advice. She did call a special meeting, but not in accordance with the bylaws. She called a special meeting that didn't have her and Dan's removal on it. And it's been described, if you've been following this at all, you've heard the analogy. It's like you get people, you say, man, we got to talk to Randy. I can't believe he let that chicken in the door tonight. We got to have a special meeting to talk about Randy's guest speaker policy. We're just mad at Randy. And Randy calls a special meeting to plan the menu for the next year. And you go, whoa, 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 whoa. That's not the meeting we called. And he goes, yeah, but I called a meeting. That's what happened to us. She called a meeting for the 13th. That had nothing to do with the meeting that we petitioned for. So it did not meet the bylaw requirements. Therefore, it was a non-issue. She says, now this is her meeting, by the way. She says, we don't follow the bylaws. We did. Here's the way they follow the bylaws. Melinda Pago, State Committee Vice Chair, State Party Vice Chair, violated conflicts of interest under Michigan Republican State Committee Bylaws, Article 3, Sections M, 9, and 10. I won't bore you by reading it. What 9 and 10 does is talk about how to remove the procedures by which you remove a member who has violated the conflict of interest clause stated in a different section. So they're citing the wrong area. They're saying, we're going to put you in timeout because we're going to put you in timeout. No talk about how he ate 2 cookies or licked a spoon and put it back. Nothing, right? Just we don't like him. We're gonna put him in timeout. However, who's heard of unauthorized one? I really should have put down her unauthorized.
Arizona?
Yeah, Nevada. Yeah. Unauthorized one is a bipartisan organization. It's a C4, so they can take political donations. Their goal is to elect Democrats, Independents, and Republicans who agree with them. It is a clear conflict of interest. Clear. She says, well, when I got elected, I quit. All right, I can live with that, and it takes a minute. You didn't know you were going to win until you won. And oh, no. She was elected in February. They founded the organization the next April. Okay? They founded the organization after she became. Now, I've got the bylaws here too. I'm level 10, so I highlighted. If you guys want to pass these around, keep their minutes with the bylaws, because I'm a nerd who works in a clerk's office and I color-coded everything. So you can find their action in the bylaw it violated, highlighted the same color. According to the conflict of interest, the big one that people hang their hat on is you can't take more than $500 for blah, blah, blah activity. Okay, fair enough. Or, keep reading in the longest paragraph in these bylaws, take an officer position, take blah, 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 blah. There's more to it. You don't have to take any money. She says she's not getting paid. Nobody believes her. Somebody is eating her or feeding her and keeping her lights on. We don't know how she's getting paid. She says she's not taking a salary from anybody. It doesn't matter whether or not she's getting paid. She holds an officer position. She is a founding president of this organization that started after she was elected. Her resignation was tendered on October 28th, after this effort got started. So she had no intention of stopping the conflict of interest. However, going further, conflict of interest, I'm telling you what, I'm not kidding. I don't know if the name Bobby Shostak means anything to anybody in this room. He was the chair of the Michigan Republican Party when I first got started. You talk about cronyism. Oh my word. Like, he got Republicans elected, so people turned a blind eye, but he used his position to funnel all kinds of business to his business partners. It was the grossest thing I ever saw until Corona. In this environment where she has no money, she gave an $80,000 contract to the guy who gave her nominating speech at the February convention, and she says, well, it's for, I think, 8, don't quote me, 7 or 8-ish, somewhere in the neighborhood, laptop computers, and IT support, and a website. First of all, if you go to the MRP website, I don't know, $4 maybe. But there was a no bid contract, and not even the budget committee of state committee can see the contract. They refuse. They say she signed a non-disclosure agreement. You can sign an NDA for proprietary information. You can sign it for anything you want. I could understand that. Here's the technology we're going to use. Here's the, I don't know. I'm an English major. I have words on my scarf, okay? I don't know technology. Maybe there's some reason you need an NDA as part of this gig. But it shouldn't cover the contract or the payment or the cost. The budget committee of MRP shall, it's not may, shall direct the spending of money, shall approve all expenditures. They did not approve the expenditure. They were not given the information. This is a repeating thing. So her friends are getting rich. What few dollars come into the MRP, I'm done telling people to support the MRP at this point financially, because we have no control as state committee members on where your money's going. We have no protection for your dollars. This is interesting. Orange bullet point here. One of their own members was calling things out of order that they were trying to do. She's a good person, and she's very confused. But she was trying to protect their process, and they just kept shouting her down. I was watching all this, by the way. We had one statutory member who didn't count toward quorum go into their meeting. I shouldn't tell you how we do dirty pool. And then she set up a Zoom meeting, so we were all watching over her shoulder on the Zoom meeting. They didn't know we were on. That was so much fun. We had like 15 people there who didn't have to be there. It was great. There was a motion to suspend the signature requirement for the removal of Chair Caramo. That is a violation. You can amend your bylaws. You cannot suspend your bylaws. You can suspend maybe rules for a meeting, rules for a convention. You can do a lot of things. If you as a body, if you know, here the executive committee, you are a legislative body. You have a lot of power to change the rules, but you can't suspend bylaws. That's just next level, can't be done. You have to formally amend them. Their parliamentarian, who said we did everything right, was wrong. He would not quote the rule of order that he was hanging his hat on. He just said that they can suspend the bylaws. Let's see what else we got here. This is interesting. So there are some ringleaders. Let's see, we got several handful of ringleaders, and we'll read their name. They were charged with, let's see, violating their fiduciary duties. It's a great term. Duty of loyalty. And duty of care under, again, the rule that doesn't define these things. It just tells you you're in timeout. That's it. Okay? No allegations other than they weren't loyal to us. You can watch this. This is on YouTube. So a couple of things they did. How many of you are familiar with the Kalamazoo controversy? Yeah. Okay. The chair over there, Kelly, she's a very good friend of mine. This is, if I haven't ticked anybody off, I'm about to. Okay? Is it okay with you? Get clear exit? Okay. I actually don't agree with my friend on this. I would not. I was chair when she did this, and I called her and I said, Kelly, I'm not saying you didn't have the right to do it. I just don't think it was the right thing to do. I would not have done what she did in removing a bunch of troublemaking precinct delegates. And everybody says they've got troublemaking precinct delegates. That's kind of the thing when you're in leadership. Everybody's always trying to cause trouble. But she really did, but almost by anybody's standards. These guys were working against not against the leaders in the party. That's fair game. This is politics. You got to suck it up. If you can't handle that, go somewhere else. But really against the welfare of the party. And, you know, my tack is always, you ignore those people, they get bored and they go away. So what those disgruntled precinct delegates did, now what they should have done, now Randy can't just remove you as precinct delegates because he doesn't like you. So if he's going to say that here in a minute, he's wrong, okay?
Why am I here?
He's the troublemaker, I just found him. What the precinct delegates should have done is just calm down, okay? It would be a misdemeanor not to let them into the next county convention. Show up, get your credential, vote your vote, thumb your nose at Kelly on the way out the door, and go home. That's all they had to do. All they have to do is show up. She's not going to violate the law and get hauled off to jail so that she can make a point. She's not stupid. What they did instead of that, which would have been the adult, sane way to handle a bad decision, and again, this is my friend who made a bad decision. I love her to death, still do. What they did instead was they just decided to have a new county convention. I don't care what he does, you can't do that. Okay, county conventions are very, very, very clearly defined. They had a county convention, big air quotes, on September 15th. They decided that the Kalamazoo Executive Committee no longer was that, and they installed themselves as the new executive committee. You can't do that. You can't do that. That's not the grown-up answer to a real problem. And so Christina's team authorized that as the official party position. Her effort. Now these guys, I don't know, how many of you, again, are precinct delegates? How many of you got the email the other day about God installed her on the throne of the MRTP? Guys, I'm a Christian, okay, but my preacher says something like that. She has been ordained by God to ascend the throne of, oh my God. Okay, you're in a cult. You're in a cult. Even the cultists, when it came, and I'm on my last point, when it came to voting out those handful of troublemakers that I've been working with and following, by the way, in case you care, 15 of her own members abstained from that. That just tells you how much of an overstep that was. So raise your hand if you knew nothing about this. You did not have enough pre-information to even have a clue what I was talking about, but I kind of look like a nice person, you don't mind so much. Hi. Anybody? Do we have time for questions? Your meeting is starting.
What we're going to do is, if you can hang in there,
I sure will.
We'll go back through when we have some time into the end of the meeting, and that way we can get carrying through. I thank you, Jeannie, and a lot of people know that everything in the state is a mess, and Jeannie understands it as well as anybody. I don't even pretend to. They're having a state committee member meeting Saturday, and I'm not a voting member, I'm not a state committee member, but because I'm a county chair, I am a member, but I can't vote, but I can take somebody with me. So Jennifer and I are going to go watch the show on Saturday and see what happens.
And the purpose of that meeting is to elect a new chair. I think we left off the most important thing.
Yes, that they're looking at electing a new chair. And we might need Betsy for backup security. Okay. All right. We're going to get the meeting rolling here, kids. Meeting will come to order. And since we haven't seen him for a long time, if you got the breath for it, Jerry, you want to do an invocation for us? Jerry was off with heart trouble, and my God, we're glad to see him back. Good to be back.
Gracious Heavenly Father, God, we thank you for the privilege of having the freedom that we have in this country, although the evil forces are trying to take it away from us. We pray that you be with us this evening hour, watch over us, give us wisdom and understanding as we proceed with the rest of the meeting this evening. And we do pray for our country, and we do pray for all those good patriots that are running, and we pray that somehow they stop the cheating this year. In Christ's name I pray. Amen.
Amen. Amen. Thank you. And then I just found out tonight that his lovely wife Lisa had her own heart trouble and was in the hospital. And so we're glad to see both of you. Would you do the pledge with us, Lisa?
I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
Thank you. And bear with me. Most of you know that I have a trucking company, and the other night at about 8 below, I was out the whole freaking night trying to get one of the trucks started, and I think after that did something. I get nosebleeds lately, and it's probably the dry air. So if I start bleeding all over, just kick me out. Okay, there you go. All right. Roll call, please.
Yes. Randy Hollister.
Here.
Jennifer Wertz.
Here.
Susan DeLong, present. Myself. Chance Murdoch.
Can't make it.
Okay. John Lindsay.
Here.
John Towers. Here. Darius Behringer. Here. Karen Kirkpatrick. Here. Jerome Rowright. Letha Van Blarkum. Here. Cheryl Stutschulty. Marty Gage.
Here.
And Mary Jo Evans.
She's on a trip. Okay. Introduction of attendees and guests. Tonight we have our Jeannie that just spoke, and we'll be trying to have her more right along as much as she can come and keep us updated. We have Andrew Fink hiding back there. He's here tonight for us. Pardon? I can't say anything. I might be too short to hide, but other than that. Who else do I have? Who else am I supposed to say? Oh, Casey's here for Tim Wahlberg. Maybe that's it for right now. John Senior's here. That's the important part. So.
Right.
Okay, thank you. If you didn't hear that, Jonathan's on his way. Can I have a motion to accept the agenda for tonight? Karen?
Second.
Oh man, it was a race. All approved, say aye. Aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes. Like a motion to approve the minutes.
Aye.
That was good. Well, don't let my messing up mess you up. All in favor of passing accepting the minutes, say aye. All opposed, nay. Motion passes. You poor people. That'll teach you to like me in there. And now, because of that, I'm not even going to give a cheers report. So there. So we'll go right to Susan.
Okay then. Everybody has the activity report in front of you. As we have seen before, the previous balance was $5,397.17. We had a total deposits of $175, leaving us with a total of $5,572.17 in the deposits. We then did have the 5th district. We did the dues for $25 and donation of $250 at $300. We did pay for the Bradstein LDD speaker. I think that's a deposit, $1,000. And then Anadot did have a charge back from one of our people that had invested in a ticket. So hopefully we won't see that again. Anyway, the total checks written was $1,393.44, leaving our current state account at $4,178.73. The administrative account, the previous balance, as you see it, was $881.83. Thank you to everyone who continues to donate here at the potluck. That does help with our admin fees. So we had a $230 donation last meeting. That left a total of $1,111.83. We then did have to purchase some stamps. We had our annual P.O. box. I cannot believe it's already been a year. And we had the Township Hall fee here at $50. So the total expenses was $273.20, leaving us with a current register balance of $838.63 in the admin account.
That it?
Yes, sir.
All righty. We'll go right to public relations.
I honestly don't have anything besides it'll tie into the Lincoln Day. So I don't know if you want to do both at the same time or.
Works for me.
Okay.
So I'm going to, public relations is really tying into Lincoln Day for this year. So we're just starting right now to gather some things, and we'll be working on some assets. But we were kind of getting everything finalized first. So you'll start seeing that. But I want to note, for those who can come on next Tuesday, the 23rd, we're going to meet from 5 to 6 p.m. at the conference room at the Big B in Coldwater, where we're going to, if you want to know what's going on with Lincoln Day, finalizing things, we're looking for, we don't need as much help this year since we're using Tibbetts. They staff everything for us. But if you want to help with marketing, or we'll be going out for donations and different things, we'd love for you to come to that meeting, see what's going on, look at our budget, what we're planning. Again, that'll be from 5 to 6 p.m. on next Tuesday. But that's kind of our next big thing and what we're working on. And as always for public relations, if there's anything else you find important that you want to go out to the group, please send it to me or Randy, because then we just connect and we'll get that out to the group. So as far as sending emails or posting to Facebook. That's all.
Thank you. I will add to that just a little bit since you mentioned that. We have kind of a pitiful time. Nicole is our connection. She sends the email out, and we don't send them out frivolously, and we don't send out a lot of them. We want you to read them when we send them out. Obviously, you don't read them. So we need to figure out why in the H you don't read them. We have a county convention at our next meeting. We sent that out for everyone to respond that they received the email. We got like 20 out of 120 at best. Then we sent it out again. Please reply by tonight at 8 p.m. We got a few more. So that night, because you have to then send letters to people if they don't respond to your free email. So out of our 120 people, I sent out over 50 letters that we had to buy stamps, envelopes, get the wife to print up papers for absolutely no reason except that everybody didn't read their email. So you need to help us figure out why you don't read them when you get them. Somebody's got to figure it out.
Is that just the PDs?
Yes.
Oh, so I didn't get one, so I'm not in trouble.
Everybody's in trouble but Julia.
But you are getting the meeting ones now, correct? Okay.
Oh, so now you are.
I read them.
So,
Especially, Randy is going to be nice and not say this part. He was up to what, 2:30 a.m. getting all those letters out.
yes,
So, takes a lot of time.
unneeded. I don't mind doing whatever I need to, but that's not needed. So we got to come up with something. Either we got to change the colors when the email comes and says, read this, damn it, or something. I don't know. Okay. Bylaws, you want to follow that?
Yeah.
Joanne had something.
Could you ever text on the phone that you're supposed to look at the emails?
That's the
don't.
I think that is a point.
I just
Everyone, I bet here, gets so much spam that sometimes you're just flying through things. I know a lot of people hit just delete all, and they shouldn't, but that's what I'm thinking might be happening. So
Well, I don't know, and probably Ken don't know, but I don't know how much you want us to do to find you. I mean, do we have to email and text and YouTube and Facebook and
Can there be a preference by a person?
It becomes complicated.
And cost.
I have the same problem at my salon when I try to reach out to clients. Some people do emails, some people text, some people do nothing, some people don't want to be bothered, some people are mad that you didn't reach them.
well,
I
what I
haven't
can
found a
really
solution
say is,
either.
if you want to stay up to date, check your email every night when you go to bed, because I'm the most uncoordinated. I got 3 bags just to come in here. One's probably just for my trucks and don't have to have it. I don't. But, and I bet more emails than anyone, more text, more spam, more everything. My cell phone number is my business number, has been for 20 years. I get crap. But I answer emails. I usually answer a text within an hour. I'll answer emails as fast as I can. To have a tendency to once in a while do it going down the road, but don't tell anybody. So we got to be responsible and look at those emails.
Randy, I know that some email services, if you're one of like over 20 or 50 recipients, it'll automatically go into junk mail. So some people might be getting them, but not looking, looking in their inbox, but it might be automatically going to their.
If anybody thinks that you're not getting Nicole's email, then we need to reach out to Nicole. You send her an email, and that'll train your email to take hers in. I do realize the first time something comes, but once you've done that correspondence, it should come to you.
I have a suggestion. The people receiving the email can make a separate email account just for that stuff. No, nothing else goes in there. That way you don't have to do, you guys don't have to do
But everything is like I
the
like.
people out here would have, they can make a separate email account just for that and then update you guys, which would be a lot of work at the beginning, but then you don't, right? They know that something in that one is only yours.
Oh, for you fancy people that have more than one email. I didn't even follow you. I got one. If anything happens to that, I'm done. So
all iPhones come with an iCloud account.
all iPhones come with.
I know. So I mean, that's a separate email address that a lot of people don't use.
Okay, but so that's my crying for the night. Something's got to be done. People got to check their emails when they go to bed. Something. So we can. There's a lot more people ask me all the time what's going on at the state. I haven't been forwarding emails because you don't read them anyway, and part of the time it makes you up if you don't follow along. So there's that. Bylaws. David.
Yeah, we have nothing.
Oh, I'm sorry.
Despite numerous requests, I've never received an email to my knowledge.
Well, at the end of the night.
What is
Check with the
where
client.
can I send an email? Where?
Here, I can, when we're done, Rex, just come with me, I'll make sure it's correct in the system.
Okay, thank you.
Yep.
Was me.
Well, it is. But I thought you looked away when I said.
No.
Well, maybe.
Are you there yet?
Yes, sir.
Are you done with your rant?
Oh, I am. I am.
Want to be clear?
Go ahead.
Bylaws committee, we reported last time. We finished the bylaws now. We've started another project that we're trying to figure out, the Branch County Republican Party. Dave's going to speak to that tonight a little bit, just to give you an update. We haven't done a lot, but take it.
Evening, folks. David Mansfield. I'm here with my lovely wife, Judith. All the other counties do it differently. So none of them do it the same. Some people have bylaws that include some verbiage. If you're not a precinct delegate, you don't have an official title or a reason to be here, you can't vote. But what can you do? What are you encouraged to do? How can you get involved? Are there things you can do? And they have information in their bylaws that do that. Some of them kept it separate. Some of them had a separate document that just had this kind of invitational greeting that they would hand out. So we just kind of brainstormed some of the things that we thought should be in there. The team I'll throw that all together. We just finished up the final draft. I made some more changes last night. I have some more changes to make this week. And then we wanted to pitch this to you, just the concept. And of course, Randy will have the final say. It's only about 5 pages, so this isn't a big deal. It could be something that just sits on the table, and when a new guest signs in, we say, hey, welcome, and here's some information. It would tell them some things like, what's our purpose? What do we do here? What's an executive committee? What can't you do during the meeting? Can you speak? When can't you speak? You know, just some of those situation things. Could we have someone sponsor a person? New person walks in the door. Could somebody sponsor them and just sit with them for the meal that day and kind of whisper what's going on and kick them in the shin if they do something they're not supposed to, or that would interfere with the normal meeting? You know, we're just kicking around ideas how to incorporate more people. Wouldn't it be cool? How many Republicans are in Branch County? You know, there ought to be 1,000 people in this room, right? I mean, so, you know, it seems like you folks are carrying a lot of the burden. It would be nice to, you know, increase that number. And we haven't really cracked the code there. And you guys had a lot going on. John and I have had a lot of discussions about the transition of our county effort. So this is probably way down the road. But it was just something we threw around. And it came down to 5 pages. It's got some facts and questions. It's got who to contact. It'll have our website information, that sort of thing, so they can take that home if that's what we decide to do. And we're looking for a little bit more feedback. Judith and I being new last year, and we talked with Dave too, what were the first things when you walked in the room that you wish you would have known, right? To make you more comfortable, to get you more involved earlier, you know, to really understand what the opportunities are, that if you want to do things, you don't have to be a precinct delegate. You can get involved in the other committees and serve that way. So we have this document, it's 5 pages. We're looking for a couple of people that are volunteering or would work with us for a meeting or two. Take a look at the 5 pages, tear it up, tell us we got it wrong, help us remember when your first meeting was, what you would have enjoyed seeing there, or something that would have helped, that would have maybe motivated you to want to get involved a little bit sooner rather than later, and ultimately take part in the effort that especially we need in the coming year. So again, if anybody has time to look at that, I'd shoot it to you in an email. If you let John know if you're willing to do that, and we'll work with you, and maybe one meeting as a group to final it up, and then we'll pitch it back to Randy and the executive committee and see what you want to do if you wanted to join them. Keep it a separate document. It could be an attachment to the bylaws maybe that we just refer to as needed, or that sort of thing.
So Dave and David have kind of taken charge of this, and really what we're trying to do is, like I say, I don't want to call it a set of bylaws, but a set of rules for the Branch County Republican Party. Jeannie, we talked about this a year ago. You may not remember it, but as I remember it, Calhoun has their executive committee at one time, and then they have the Calhoun Republican Party meeting. Is that right? So Jeannie can maybe we should tap her for some knowledge too. But do you understand what we're trying to do? We have our executive committee bylaws, but how do we to write up a set of rules for what it means to be a part of the Republican Party? So.
And it wouldn't be the only, I mean, multiple counties have these.
Multiple counties have things, and maybe I should get yours. I'll get your email.
They all have some.
Do you have separate documents? Is what I would ask of Calhoun, or is it all trying to be?
It's all one.
So what we're trying to do to clear it up for you is, you know, Hillsdale. We've read Hillsdale's. We read St. Joe's. We read Cass's.
Yes.
We didn't read Calhoun's. But what we are thinking, and maybe you can give us some clarity right now, is that we feel like we need a separate document. Everybody tries to include it all under the executive committee bylaws. We want to write up rules for the Branch County Republican Party. We'll talk about it.
And again, we were trying to think if it was our first meeting, you tell me to read the bylaws to understand it. It probably wouldn't have made any sense either. Yeah, it's too much and overwhelming. But
you shared with me before of how Calhoun had evolved into having the Republican Party meeting separate from the executive committee, and it's caused so much consternation with our group of well, I'm not on the executive committee, I can't speak. Some of the other people that were here before strictly wanted that meeting to only be a meeting of the executive committee. Nobody else really could participate.
I remember one lady asked me at that barn meeting that you're referring to, what did we do about the people who kind of threw a fit about not being able to come to the executive committee meeting, because our executive committee meetings are closed. They last about 45 minutes. It is where are we buying our insurance, who's going to buy the tablecloths for the thing. It is like down and dirty and we're out the door. And then we actually had 0 complaints. And our attendance at our 7 o'clock meeting, which is our general informational, guest speaker, it actually increased. We have really vibrant meetings now, because rather than having the public listen to us bicker about which insurance agent we're going to use for our fair booth, which is, not sexy in anybody's world, we actually engage people on the things that are interesting to them, and then tie that back to how they can help locally. So our attendance is actually, just Casey can tell you, like we're standing room only most of the time.
So we're in that transition mode. What we've done, what you're seeing here tonight, and you might be looking at Jeannie saying, "What is it? There's a bunch of rednecks out here." we were just homogenizing what used to be an executive committee with a Branch County Republican meeting that is being run as an executive committee meeting. So we're trying to transition that. You may have some good input for Dave, David, and I, and Cheryl and Tiffany.
We serve Meyer cookies. Your food blows our nose.
Oh yeah. That's so again, maybe we can contact later, but how we transition from, because if we said tomorrow or 6 months ago, we'd said, hey, we're separating the executive committee, we'd all got lynched around the executive committee. But we're trying to transition so these folks don't get bored with the executive committee stuff. The executive committee stays just on that business part, and then we can come out and have a meeting. So,
but I think that's a really good point. So if we can find a way to have the meetings jive better, so that'll work out, that would be really exciting. I think we've done a good job with all the questions we asked each other. We tried to answer them in this document, so I feel like there's a lot of information here for someone who's new or who's interested. The other thing was, we are a fundraising activity, so should we be paying some type of dues other than pay the elephant for our good food that we have every meeting? But that was the other thing that we struggled with, to find the right balance. I just feel like I'm here, so I'd be willing to give. Maybe some people can't, and I think we could recommend ways that Randy and the executive board could work around that case, or maybe somebody else could sponsor that person if it's really something they can't do. I don't want anybody to not be feeding their children because they're going to the public meetings, but that sort of thing. And to make one thing was we have an excellent website, but if you go to the website, it says executive committee. It doesn't say Branch County Republican Party, kind of being more inclusive. So I mean, it's just that last week at these things to see how we can tie it all together. And seriously, if there's 2 people, 3 would be better, but 2 people that if you'd let John know that you're interested, we can just have you take a look at it. And if you could come to one meeting or on the phone or help us discuss it and go over it one more time, I think we'd have something to present to the committee and be done with that.
We're going to present a document at the next meeting. David, we're going to present a document. And what I want you to do, and it's probably going to discuss dues for being a member of the Branch County Republican Party. Don't take the document and start just burning it. It's just an idea. If you got input, let us know. I know some people want dues, some people don't. I think we need to do it, and I think we need to address it. And then we had talked as a group about we could have a bucket of money called sponsor money. So if somebody didn't want to pay their dues or couldn't pay their dues, we'll take care of it. You're not going to get kicked out of the room if you don't pay dues. But these are things that are being discussed. We'll have it we'll pass it out next meeting. Fair enough?
Do you have questions or guidance or?
No guidance? No. Thank you very much, guys. They really are working hard on that committee. Election integrity, Ms. Betsy.
Okay, so through the election integrity course, there are, 6 dates for full challenger training. for poll workers also, and it just gets you familiar with like the MCLs and working at the polls, just being familiar with everything that you're going to be. I would recommend that for everybody that will be working the election. Tim and I recently met with Terry, and we went over, Nancy had, was it 82, 72? 74, that she found just within the last year on just the WTVB site that were still on our qualified voter files in Branch County and hadn't been removed. So we're working on that still. This is from St. Joe, but it's going to be a 2-day event starting Friday, February 16th, and all day Saturday. Jen has a poster, and I've got some of these, and there's some up here if you guys want to. Darleaf, Joe Oatman, Mark Fincham, and it's just learning about the elections, all the information you can get. And that actually, the 17th starts our first day of voting in Branch County at the Durr Center. And after talking with Terry, I believe that it was 41 people went to the pilot thing. There was only 41 people that voted in 9 days at the pilot in November. And it's a huge expense to have people, the amount of people that are supposed to be working there, 10 people, 10 hours a day for 9 days. And ends up being like $13,500 just for the workers. And then Monday it closes, and then Tuesday you go to your precincts for your regular election day. So this will be fun to go to instead of going to vote early. I don't recommend voting early.
Can I add that too? He said he has a suggested donation on there, but they are going to cover at cost for anyone who can't. It's just a suggested. So I said, please don't not come because of the donation.
And Craig Crable is the one who's heading this up. He's originally from Brunson, I believe. And he's always attended all of our events that we've done, and so I'm excited for this. So I have these flyers, and if anybody has a place that they can hang them up, I have a couple posters too.
Thank you, Betsy. Our setup and potluck, Mr. Marty sets up, and I think he does a wonderful job. Do you have any comments, questions, anything for us tonight?
Well, yeah, Robert Melton usually helps me, and Dan helps me too. But Robert's sick right now, and he's in the hospital. And I have a card up here. I hope everybody signed it. Please sign it if you haven't. It would be nice. I'll take it to him tomorrow. It'd be nice for him to get it.
Okay, very good. Potluck, Darius, doing a fine job taking over from Mary Jo. Do you have anything for us, young lady?
Yes, next month there is these. Some people got
Karen.
Hey Marty, about the setup.
Are you trying to kill me?
I'm minding my own business.
I moved just in time to thwart his plan. Wow, I'm coming for you, John. Johnny Carrot.
Were you trying to say something there?
Yeah, so up here on the table, there's monthly things. We have like a kind of like a monthly menu of what's going to be going on. Next month, though, is not going to be chili because of the convention. We're going to do pizza, so that's a change. But other than that, these are up here. So as people want, like if you have a special dish and you want something special for that, you know what the next year's meals will be. That's it.
Thank you. Finance, Chance did text tonight that he couldn't make it. So, Susan, Karen.
All right. Don't touch the table.
Yeah, you might want to keep the camera on. So Susan went through all the numbers. The only questions that we had that we can get answered from the Lincoln Day committee, we were talking about how exactly the raffle was going to work, what the financing was with the licensing, and then just to get a better understanding of working with Tibbetts as well on getting the ticket numbers, kind of getting running tallies, getting reports from them and everything else. So we can work with you guys. I'll be at that meeting next Tuesday as well to get that. Because we just, as a committee, when we had our last event, we finally got Anadot kind of figured out where we could run the reports. We could see how much money was coming in.
Explain what Anadot is.
Oh, when you do the QR code that was on the elephant, or when people bought tickets online. And so we could actually track the income coming in. We could refund tickets, we could bill for different amounts online, and then at the end of the year, we could run reports just to kind of compare that to the printed tickets to show who had bought what, to make sure that we were in line with our campaign financing, right? Monies that were going to state committee, making sure that the filing was correct. So we just have to kind of make sure that we're getting all of that as well with this event going forward, because I think it's fantastic that we can be more hands-off, right? I love that. But just kind of understanding a little bit more how that works. So that was the crux of our whole meeting after we went over the budget items.
Thank you very much. Campaign committee.
All right, a few things have happened in a month when it comes to who's running and who's is retiring. So first off, the primary election, for those that don't know, is August 6th. I was going to say before, I remember my first meeting, because we were talking about the first meetings, the first time you were here. Mine was county convention last year. And I'm still here, so.
You're a survivor.
Yeah. So August 6th is the primary election. Early voting happens July 27th to August 4th, in case you wanted to know. General election is November 5th. Early voting is October 26th, November 3rd. Filing deadline is April 23rd for partisan races. And for those that are thinking of running or are in the process of running, there's 3 different things you have to get done, and you can all go to the county clerk office, and she will walk you through everything that you need to do, and it's fairly simple once she walks you through it. You either get a petitions, sign petitions, 3 to 10 signatures for most races. I believe sheriff is quite a bit more. Or you can pay a fee if you didn't want to do petitions. You have to give an affidavit of identity that's notarized. They do it right there. And then you have to do a statement of organization, which they also do right there. So everything is done at the county clerk's office, except you got to go out and get your signatures.
What was that date again?
Which one?
For the August election?
August election is August 6th.
But you have to file by when?
April 23rd at 4 p.m. So for looking forward to, speaking of delegates and people that want to get involved, for all of us running in the room, running for a position, the things that we're going to really need are people to help out with doorbelling. A lot of times it goes in twos. So just getting together with, a friend, another person, whoever wants to help out with that. Doorbelling is going to be huge for everyone running. So that's the kind of stuff that I want to reach out to delegates with, and which we'll send the emails out for that eventually. Helping with signs, as far as campaign signs go. And then obviously that would come from donations to campaigns. So everyone running in here, signs cost money, so when it comes to donations, that's going to be huge as far as being able to get signs and the material for when you do doorbelling to tell all of our neighbors what you're going to help out and do in the community. Yep.
You're from Washington?
Yes.
They have doorbells out there. We call it door knocking. Knocking. Because nobody here has doorbells.
Do you guys?
Just door knocking.
Do they still call it doorbelling though, or is it door knocking? Is it knocking?
Door knocking. Sorry.
That is true. I did live east of Seattle, where all the tech workers and
sorry,
lots of doorbells. Some of them even play songs when you push the buttons. So.
Sorry. Get that here, John.
He's still a little bit hurt from a couple Mondays ago.
so sorry.
Oh, well, that's all right. I can correct me later. All right. So as far as who's running, District 2, I'm running for County Commissioner. For those that don't know who I am, I'm John Towers. With the S. Some people call me Tower. Towers. Sheriff, a lot of things have happened just today in the sheriff race. First off, I can say this because it's been published on WTVB, is that John Pollock is retiring at the end of his term this year. So if you didn't know that, that's happening. As of today, Robin Swartz, who's been in law enforcement for a very long time, she is just put her name in for running for sheriff. And then Mike Thing, who's here with us today, he's also running for sheriff. So we currently got Mike Thing and Robin Swartz are our two candidates for sheriff, with John Pollock retiring at the end of the year. State representative, we have 3 in the race currently. We have Adam Stockford, who's there in the back. We have Jennifer Warts, who's right up here, and we have Tom Matthew, who's not here. Branch County Administrator, I'm sure a lot of you have heard he's announced his retirement at the end of the year. Bud Norman is retiring at the end of this year. And I asked, I had a discussion with someone the other day, and it's from a reputable source. Apparently there's 11 open county administrator spots in the entire state. So that's what we're going up against as far as when the commissioners decide to hire any administrators, that there's 11 of them open currently. And I heard today as well on WTVB that Branch County Prosecuting Attorney Zach Stepien will be running for a second term. And then one other thing is absentee ballots for the election, I should have said this at the beginning, are due 8 p.m. on election day. And then for all future federal and state elections, early voting will start on the second Saturday before election day, ending Sunday before election day. So that's happening moving forward. Any questions?
John, just one thing, for running for school board, you do not have to file for that until July, because that's non-partisan. So that's not going to be on the primary. And in Quincy, there's 2 positions that will be open. If anybody in Quincy School District wants to.
Cool.
I don't know about anywhere else.
Precinct delegates, when do they sign up, or when is the?
So precinct delegates would be next month, right, for the county convention? Is that right? Or is
What
that
she's wondering
for the election?
Yeah. And I don't even, I don't know.
I'll look into that. I'll look into that.
I think it's coming up in March.
I was thinking it might be that April 23rd date. That might be the following date for precinct delegates.
It's in the primary in August.
I think it's the April 23rd date, not sure.
With everything, okay.
Is there elevation for next, we've got someone that was interested in being elevated next month.
Depends if we like them or not.
I feel like it.
Well, we do vote on that, right?
Yeah. Yeah.
It's not me. I can't vote.
Jessica?
Yeah, just tag on to John there. I am putting my signatures in tomorrow for District 2. Listen to me. District 1, sorry. So that's
running against each other? Oh.
yeah, sure, right? Because you're going to cover House's House, and I'm going to be running toward Hazelbaker. And we've got 2 other positions. I know we would like to try to get some new blood in there too. So if anybody's in those districts, I encourage it. 3 signatures is the minimum to get on the ballot. It's not that hard. I have almost 10 just because I'm an overachiever sometimes. And anybody who's in Ward 1, 3, or 4 that would like, I have 3 spots available. She's like, hit me up. And I will turn those in tomorrow. And so that covers 2 of the 4 we gave notice to when we did our constitutional county. And we're going to hold them to the fire. So let's get it done.
Very good. Very good. Thank you for the report. Thank you, Jeff. On new business, we'll be each year getting a headquarters for the election period to try to have a place where you have stuff together and be there all the time. I have kind of a unique thing run into. Probably nobody will be excited about it, but I could see a lot of potential. I have a cousin that is into real estate. Him and his real estate girlfriend live in Marshall. They're very conservative. They went with us up to see President Trump, and they came to our Lincoln Day dinner, and they came to see Tulsi. And they are buying an airport hangar here in Coldwater. And he asked if we might be interested in renting a couple offices and having a space there, and the leadership and committee chairman would all have keys for it, come and go as they please. We would have a place we could meet 24/7 anytime we wanted. And for a special occasion, you could open the back door and roll the airplane out and have the airport hangar space that looks right out onto the runway. Probably could stand a couple hundred inside and thousands outside. Got a kitchenette, a couple bathrooms, place to store things. They did have a radio room that they broadcast from, and they're going to get that working again. So there could be podcasts, there could be just unlimited ideas. It's a lot of money. They'd want $1,000 a month for 2 offices. There's a common space that's 20 feet by 30 feet. You could get easily 50 chairs in there to have this type of a meeting or any other. There's just a lot of stuff. And we went last month to the District 5 with JD. He had a seminar where he brought a couple people in on earning money. Myself, David, Judith, John Tower, and Darius, her husband Dan. Did I? It's going to be forever. We all went to it. It was a whole lot more than I expected. He had a couple guys there. For instance, one of them ran the DeSantis campaign for his run for governor. These guys were good, and we got a list of things that we can't even get to yet to bring to the committee. But one of his suggestions was, when you have something like that, and if you want to go and get money in from people, to have something tangible that you can tell them you're using it for. So something like this headquarters, you could get people to pledge 100, 200 a month. You get 4 or 5 good-sized people around that can do 100, 200 bucks. Pretty soon you got your 1,000 covered. And it would be year-round if you wanted it. Wouldn't have to be. Then there's another 1 or 2 offices that they would rent out for a couple $100 bucks. And it just kind of an unlimited thing. But this Sunday, I'm asking anybody that could be interested or just curious to come out and meet. I'm going to go through it again with my cousin just to look it over. So 2 o'clock Sunday at the airport. It's the very first hangar right behind. There's the 911 center, and right behind that, the very first hangar. It's a blue building. Darius?
Is there any way to change the time on that? Because the game starts at 2.
Oh yeah, so you are going to get anyway.
You can tell I'm not a sports guy. Never gave it a thought. I was just trying to stay away from church. Yes, we could. We could go to noon. I was just trying to, let people get out of church. But I would like to have some people come out and take a look at this with me and just see your thoughts. It's a lot of money, but this, at the end of this year, is going to $200 a meeting a month instead of $50, and who knows where they'll jack it up after that. Susan.
I just have a quick question regarding if we have like 11 meetings a year, we by our bylaws only are required to have how many? I thought it was
4, I think.
6 or 7. How many?
Oh, I don't
Only 4, isn't it?
I thought it was quarterly,
Well,
but I don't know.
Does anyone know that? I should know
Jeannie
that.
might.
Shame on me.
Your rules are different than everybody else's.
Oh.
Everybody's rules are different.
Well, I mean, we are only required to have so many, but anyway, we'll look into that, because maybe that's another option, if it's gonna be more expensive if we did a few less. And instead of every month, just a thought.
Okay.
I'm being counter, just trying to save money.
Very good. So anybody with a question or interest on that, give me a call, and we could go to noon, since there's a game that I didn't know.
The game starts at 3, so if you do it
Okay.
maybe 1.
Yeah, 1 o'clock. Let's say 1 o'clock. Thank you. Okay. Did we need any more on bylaws? John? David? Okay. Upcoming county convention. That's next week. That's going to be our next meeting. Next month. It's going to be our next meeting.
Yeah.
I'm not ready for next week.
That email went out to you. That is basically to get delegates to send to the state convention in Detroit. And it is going to be basically who you're going to want for president and other people, but that's the big thing. So you can nominate someone. You can just come in and say you want to go, and if you can't make the meeting, the important thing is that you let me know, or somebody know that can let me know by 4 o'clock that day that you want to be on the ballot for election that night. So by 4 o'clock, you got to let somebody know if you want to run. If you can't be here, if you're going to be here, it doesn't matter. And at the end of that night, we will elevate precinct delegates. If there's open space in a precinct, we can elevate someone to fill that, get up to the numbers that are available. And they have to be, basically they have to come in, they have to be able to prove their address that they are eligible for that precinct. There's a lot to that. Is there any questions on that county convention next month?
Randy, do you know how many we can send to state?
11. It'll be 11 delegates and then 11 alternates.
Do you have the dates on that?
Thank you.
You got the
Saturday, March 2nd.
That's when the vote is?
That's when the state convention.
That's what the state convention is. Were you asking about the vote?
The
So you
vote's
have the
February
vote on the
15th.
15th?
Correct.
Did you find out where in Detroit it is? You said you were going to.
I did. They want to keep it secret.
I don't want to.
I don't remember, but I'll find out tonight.
Yeah.
And that was like 3 nights ago.
But I just haven't went to bed yet. It's still tonight.
It's a trip for
To me, it's all just Detroit. So, but I will be finding that
We all
out
know how Detroit is.
tonight.
It's 20 minutes to get 5 miles, so the location makes a big difference.
Yeah. And then there will be people that are curious. Young Alex here is videoing. He's been to a meeting with us. He videoed when we had Tulsi come in that night. What he wants to do is try to find a way to get information, God, country, conservatism out to the youth. Trying to figure out a way to possibly use some YouTube with the county in order to do that. So we have nothing set up, nothing. He's just here on his own doing it, and we're just trying to see if we can get something figured out for that. To get information out. So that's our young Alex here, what he's up to. Okay. Let's go to Casey and for Tim Wolver.
gonna use my notes, but now that I know I'm gonna be on YouTube, I better be careful what I say. All right, good seeing you all. Hope everybody had a good Christmas and a good New Year's. Congress officially went back to session for the new year last Tuesday. And I don't know if any of you saw in the news, but over the new year, so on December 30th, Tim was swatted. We believe this was, and if you're not familiar with swatting, it's a process by which people pretend to be Tim Wahlberg or some other individual and call the police and say, I'm going to kill my wife, I'm going to kill myself, and so the SWAT team shows up at your house, and if you're not careful, they'll kick your door, and they could, shoot someone in the process if you're not careful. Luckily, so Tim had his daughter. She's a missionary in Uganda, but she was home, and so she heard them walking around on the porch, and they went and got them. So luckily, nobody got hurt or anything like that. We believe that this was in response to some media coverage about Tim's recent trip to Uganda for the National Prayer Breakfast. I'm not sure how many of you have seen, but that was all over the news the last 2 months, national and local. Tim spoke at the National Prayer Breakfast, and he never expressly supported any specific legislation, but to give some background on it, Uganda recently passed some anti-homosexuality legislation, and they've received a lot of retribution from the World Bank, the Biden administration, and several Soros-backed nonprofits and organizations. And so that they were being held to different standards that many predominantly Muslim countries in the Middle East are not held to, for having worse laws than what Uganda had. And so in these laws for Uganda, what they all include is a death penalty for raping with gay rape. Sorry, I'm not sure what the correct term for that is, but gay raping, sodomizing a minor, someone over the age of 67, or giving someone HIV. So that's what the law is about, in case you guys heard about that. But Tim told them to stand strong, to vote their conscience, to support their leaders if they believe that was the moral decision, and to not listen to the World Bank or George Soros or anybody like that. So new legislation this week. We're very excited about HR 443. This is our Enhancing Detection of Human Trafficking Act. So this passed unanimously out of Education and Workforce this week, and it has several provisions, which I'm going to read to you because I can't memorize all this. So this legislation directs the Department of Labor to educate appropriate staff on how to effectively detect instances of human trafficking, ensures personnel regularly receives information on current trends and best practices, allows flexible education options, including in-class and virtual learning options, establishes a clear course of action for referring suspected instances of human trafficking to law enforcement, and it also requires a report to Congress on the implementation of the education and the processes used by the department to measure and track the agency's response to human trafficking. So this is something near and dear to Tim's heart, and I'm sure it's near and dear to all of your hearts as well. And so, human trafficking is illegal already, but we want to make sure that whatever nexus there is at the federal level, that we can be contributing to detecting and stopping as much of it as humanly possible. So negotiations are ongoing in the Senate over a border and aid package. I know I said that last time I was here, but they're still ongoing. We're pretty hard line on HR 2, which was our border security bill passed last year. We don't want to see any bill go through that doesn't have those provisions. So we're hoping they incorporate that or an equivalent bill out of the Senate that's close to it. So, okay, some exciting Hunter Biden stuff. So I don't know if you guys saw, Hunter Biden showed up unannounced to a committee hearing last week where they were discussing holding him in contempt of Congress. So he thought he was going to be big man and give everyone the middle finger by just showing up and yelling at Marjorie Taylor Greene. Well, he actually kind of bowed out after it, and then he has since agreed to come to some depositions. So this is a big linchpin in the process of impeaching Biden. We need to have these depositions to have, you know, hard hearings to show what's all going on and sell the American public on it for one. And so we think after we can hold some of these depositions, we'll have more to hang our hats on in that sense. Foreign policy continues to be a mess. I don't know if you saw this week and last week, but the U.S. led an international coalition in striking targets in Yemen, a group called the Houthis, which Biden took off of the terrorist list at the beginning of his presidency. Trump, rightfully so, put them on, and Biden said, oh, we want to give aid to Yemen, so we're taking them off. Well, they've caused a whole lot of havoc in the Red Sea and with a lot of our shipping supply lines, attacking freight liners. So there was an international coalition. They struck some missile sites and whatnot, and so now it looks like they're going to be put back on the terror list, something that Tim supports, but it just goes to show we didn't see all this happening when Trump was president. We had peace through strength, and Putin wasn't invading his neighbors. Xi in China was being a lot more calm and collected and being careful about what he did, and we didn't see Iran taking such aggressive steps to export, you know, jihad and revolution across the Middle East. And if you're not aware of the background of that, Hezbollah, which is in Lebanon, Hamas, the Houthis, these are all subsidiaries and sponsored by Iran to create revolution all over the Middle East. So we're pushing back against that, and you know, the administration, they've finally gotten a taste of the medicine that they've fed all of us, I guess. Other items? I'll take questions in just a second, yeah, if you don't mind. So that's all I have on that. One other thing, if you know anybody who's going to the March for Life tomorrow, we are opening up our office in DC, free coffee and donuts for anybody that's going to that before the march. And so please put the word out. We'd love to have people attend that and meet with Congressman Wilbur beforehand. And I think he's going to try to get out there as well. He's got some committee stuff going on, but I think he's going to try to get out there. So with that, I am happy to take some questions. I heard you first, then I'll come to you.
Is it true that Biden gave Iran $6 billion?
Yeah, he freed up assets. So these were assets that were frozen in sanctioned money, and right before the October 7th attacks on Israel, he had freed up a lot of that money. So it's still to be determined if Iran knew and helped plan the attacks on October 7th, or if they just tacitly approved that. But either way, I mean, it's pretty coincidental if it was. So, yeah.
So, going along with that, I guess, is there any way that we can reinstall sanctions against them?
Against the Houthis?
No, against Iran.
Iran, yeah, they still have a lot of sanctions in place.
Well, basically, if Biden threw them all out the window, right? They're back to selling oil and making money, and that's why they do what they do.
Yeah, I don't have all the details on that. That's something that Biden has a lot of autonomy in deciding on, so I can't speak to that a whole lot. But
can he go to work on that?
that's something I can ask him about. I think Iran is still sanctioned, like very, very heavily. I don't think we don't allow the sale of Iranian oil. This was some sort of a negotiation prior that Iran did something in exchange for unfreezing some other assets that we had frozen in the past. So I'll definitely put it in with them and try to get you an answer back on that. Any other ones? Okay, all right. Thanks, guys.
Thank you, Casey. Yep, Jonathan, State Senator.
All right, good evening, everyone. Thanks for having me. Came in late, so I didn't get to hear one of my favorite people, Jeannie, but thanks for being here and talking to the crowd. Up in Lansing, I guess the first thing I'll say is, if you don't watch all of the session calendar stuff, we are back in session. This is constitutionally mandated. We start up the second Wednesday of every January. So my cautionary note to everybody was, if you could take your personal liberty and put it in a safe, that'd be a good idea. We're back up there, the Democrats, and your pocketbooks for that matter. I will say though, and hopefully Representative Fink will even give some more context on what's happened over the House side, but the situation in Lansing, because of some changes of the chamber breakdown, I think it's going to be pretty slow. It's hard for them to do anything right now, and so we go up there and the Democrats don't want to carry the political burden of saying, we can't work well with others, so we're just not going to do anything. So they kind of bring us up for now and just pretend that we're doing things. And it's our job to go up and be ready to vote the right way on bills and stuff, but there isn't a lot of action going on right now. So I'm going to tell just two quick things tonight. One is a story from Lansing, and then I'll go from there to talk. I think it might look like a little bit of a follow-up, because if I understand, Jeannie talked quite a bit about state committee stuff. But the story is kind of, I think it's a fun one, but it's a telling one, and it's also concerning to me. Last year I introduced a bill, it's commonly called the Defend the Guard bill. I put it in, it's because I believe in it, but I didn't ask for co-sponsors on it. I just had the draft done. It's been introduced in a lot of chambers around the country. And the basic premise is this. It says that Michigan's National Guard units will not be allowed to be called into federal service to go and serve in combat operations overseas unless the United States Congress declares war. This is something that we have not seen. We've not had a declaration of war since World War II. Potentially, coincidentally, World War II, I think, in the American conscience, is probably the last war that we can all agree on. We actually were, there's a correlation here when the people's representatives in Congress have to actually put themselves on the line and say that it is worthwhile voting on the record to declare war. You better be darn sure that it's the right thing to do. And instead, what we've seen since that time, I would argue, is a whole series of unjust wars where the government lied to the people, circumvented the will of the people, and I actually think even violated the Constitution. There is a debate about this, but it's very clear when you look at Article 1, Section 8, and it talks about the power. Congress is the only body that has the ability to declare war, but we've deviated from that, and there's this whole debate about how soft of an endorsement Congress can give to war. Is it enough for them to simply put funding in an NDAA, and then that implicitly says we want to keep doing combat in different places? We don't have to actually say we're doing it. But I think you can also go back to some of our founding documents. You can read what the founders wrote about it. You can read some of the really interesting debates that happened around the War of 1812. This was a central topic, and it was crystal clear back then. Nobody who wrote our Constitution thought that it was okay for the president to deploy our troops overseas in combat without Congress actually authorizing it. And that is not the norm nowadays. And I have a personal stake in this. If I haven't told the story to this group, everybody in Lansing decorates their desk, with something that's meaningful to them. On my desk, every day I look at 3 bracelets that are memorial bracelets of guys that I served with, and they're dead. And there is no good reason for them to be dead. America is not safer because they're dead. What we were doing over there had nothing to do with protecting any of you. It had to do with perpetuating what Eisenhower popularized as the military-industrial complex. So the funny story, if there can be a funny story about this, is I throw the bill up last year. I don't ask for co-sponsorship. I'm in minority. The bill gets referred to government operations, meaning it's going nowhere. There is no, I never thought that it was going to get traction, and it's not going to. But I get a call from the folks at Michigan's Department of Military and Veterans Affairs asking for a meeting with me. Initially, I don't know what this is about, but I'm like, sure, let's sit down. We haven't had the chance to catch up. And it turns out that what happens is folks
in the DoD at the Pentagon have told General Rogers, who is in charge of our Michigan National Guard, to keep his eye out because there's a nationwide movement around the Defend the Guard bill, and if it pops up in Michigan, he needs to send people to sit down with the sponsors and basically threaten them and tell them that if this were to pass, the federal government would defund our National Guard, right? This is a bill that, it is so, I mean, it's toothless in the current political environment because I couldn't get it across the finish line. I talked with Democrats about it a little bit, but it was more for me to stake out some territory. But I get these people come, this is how insidious and how powerful that military-industrial complex that I'm talking about is they even get a whiff of this, and they're going around, and then I confirmed with members who have introduced it in the House, they're getting the same thing. Sit down with them and say, wow, we want you to be aware, that Jim in Battle Creek, who's part of the National Guard, if you do this, federal government's going to defund our National Guard. He's going to be out of a job. You want him to be out of a job? You want his kids to starve? It's just this silly, silly stuff. And by the way, so I'd love to have a conversation with you too and Congressman about this, but we looked into it, we did our research. There is no law and there is no line in any federal appropriation bill that has ever specified that states can't take this sort of action or that money is contingent on this, right? So I sat with them today and the first thing I did is I challenged them because they brought this up and they said, you can't do this. And I said, can I just ask, there were only 2 members that came over from me. I said, how many of you, or have either of you lost somebody that do you serve with someone that died? Do you have family members that have died? Well, no. And by the time we got to have that conversation, I will say it was productive because they actually agree with me philosophically. We've got to stop this insanity of these endless wars. So that was just kind of like a story from what happens in Lansing, right? They all come out after these things. The way I'm going to try to tie it into just a quick conversation about state committee. Watch this. It's magic. Because the segue is actually going to be something that you mentioned about the Trump administration, right? I mean, an even faster way to accomplish a lot of the same thing would be get Trump back in office, and he had a real aversion to misusing the military compared to either the Bush administration or the Biden administration or the Obama administration, right? I think we could head back towards a more peaceful world. And so what I want to say is just my 2 cents about the state committee. I serve as the single ex officio member on state committee from the Republican Senate caucus. So I've gone to almost every meeting this year. I have stayed in pretty close personal contact with Christina Carmo for most of last year. I've also worked closely with a lot of the people who led the effort to remove her. And what I would say is my big takeaway from it, if anybody has questions and wants to dig through, maybe the conversation earlier was about, was it legal, how did it all happen, where do we stand, fine. I'll just say this. Branch County in 2020 recorded a vote margin between President Trump and President Biden of about 8,000 votes. My view is that the mission of this county, which has grown its membership, has a lot more people involved, a lot of great stuff going on, the goal this year should be to have a 10,000 vote margin between Biden and Trump. And my biggest concern, and how this relates to the state committee, is that it is a mess, and if the counties allow themselves to be divided and distracted by it, we're not going to get there. So you each might have your personal strong convictions, and somebody's right and somebody's wrong. But the biggest fear I have is allowing that to get in the way of doing what this county is capable of doing. You got tons of activists here. I just focus on the Trump race as an example because in presidential years, down ticket, we're going to win our House seat, we're going to win our congressional seat, but we also could impact the U.S. Senate seat. And then if you do have some of you out here who, are feeling particularly motivated to go to other places, it's a big deal. Well, we could win the Supreme Court, although you got to be educated on that one and know who to vote for. This county will know, right? But we could have a big impact, and if people get really motivated, you could also drive up to Calhoun and knock in a district to help with the state house races, or over to some of these other competitive ones. But winning the White House, I actually think is, I actually do like hyperbole, but in this case, I don't think it's hyperbolic to say we're staring at World War III, right? So I'd love to fix Michigan problems too. Like the bad policies the Democrats are doing here, but they're not like Michigan's legislature is not the reason that we could all be living in nuclear winter, right? Like that's the Biden administration. So it's a big deal, and I just want to encourage everybody, sure, dig into the state stuff if you feel passionate about it, talk about it, but do not allow it to distract you as a county from executing the mission this year to campaign here. Any questions for me?
Can you just briefly address the special elections coming up to fill those 2 seats?
Yeah, and so a good example, if people want to even just practice, or maybe you like gambling or whatever, but we've got 2 special elections because 2 House members that were Democrats lost, one of them over in Warren, one in Westland. Warren, as I understand it, has a bunch of Republicans running in a primary. The primary will be on January 30th. I don't know the status of that seat, but I've heard a lot of people say that the one in Westland has a guy named Josh Powell. Nobody else filed on the Republican side, so we already know it's him. And it's a seat that would be in a traditional election. We wouldn't put any resources into it. It's not a competitive seat. It's a Democrat. Is it about 64% they won?
You say 64?
Yeah. It's pretty strongly.
I'm not that.
It's pretty strongly in their favor. But there's a movement right now of people saying that look, the special election is going to happen either April or May 15th.
Yeah, April 13th.
That's not a normal election. Special elections are driven by turnout. It's not the normal, we all show up in November. So there is an effort out there to say, can we organize, can we mobilize, if we could get every Republican voter who usually comes out for a general to really know that this is there and beat the Democrats at turnout, the consequence of that could be huge. Because right now, I think Representative Fink will tell us some of this, the House is able to hold a gridlock and keep the Democrats from advancing their agenda. On that special election, if they get both those seats back, then it's 56-54, and we're back to them passing legislation for a period of months. And then we try to win the House back in November, right? If we win the House back in November, we can kill Gretchen Whitmer's agenda for the rest of her term. The only gap that we're missing is that period between the special election up until January of next year. So it's kind of the only game in town right now that if people want to get motivated and get involved with Josh Powell, we take a risk. I'm going to be over there. I've contributed. I'm going to go knock doors. I'm going to have some of my staff work on it. If we manage to pull off a miracle there, it's not an easy thing to do, but then we can also stop their agenda from now all the way until January 1st, and then hopefully we win in November and we continue to stop their agenda. So that's just something that if people want to plug in, contact me afterwards, or there are other people. We can even make sure that you have the info if people come to you and want to get involved. But it's an important thing here in the special election coming up. Any other question?
Yeah, I just read that, and Rescue Michigan's email went out today, and it said that they want to bring up the bill to allow illegal immigrants to have driver's license, which will automatically register them to vote in the state if they do that. It was killed 2 years ago. Just kind of wondering where, they said that some of the Republicans sponsored the bill before for political reasons, probably favors money they're taking for jobs and stuff.
Yeah.
By issuing driver's license.
I know what you're talking about, but speaking to that dynamic and worrying about who might be willing to, my instinct is that it's not going to advance any of these new election things that they want to do. Sadly, they got a lot done last year that really, changed a lot of these things, and one of them had to do with, I think, the IDs from colleges and stuff, but it wasn't about illegals, potentially being able to exploit or not be checked in the system. So I don't think stuff like that's going to move. That's my instinct. I'd have to look and see if any of my colleagues were on board with it or anybody in the House. But I think most of those things are dead now.
I think the last time there was meaningful bipartisan support for it was like several terms ago.
Yeah.
So before the electoral changes you're talking about, that would kind of have this logical result.
And back then, there were a lot of, even, Ruth Johnson used to be a Republican Secretary of State. She serves in the Senate with me now. And she was trying to work on solutions to expand mail-in voting, but with actual scrutiny attached to it, right? So there were a lot of, back then, the tone about elections and can we make it, an easier system for people in a good way was a very live conversation. The problem now is that, at least what I see from Republicans is very little tolerance of treating the Democrats like they're good faith actors on this stuff because they've shown that they just want to blow holes in the whole system, and so it's a totally different conversation now. But, one more.
An update on your lawsuit.
Update on my lawsuit, or not my. I mean, I think it's 10 or 11 of us, but it's the one challenging proposal 2 from last year, and proposal 3 from 2018. These are the things that rewrote the Constitution as it regards election law in Michigan. Is that the governor, the Secretary of State, the elections director, all the defendants had until the beginning of this month to file their response, and they finally did. And they basically argued to the court that we don't have standing, and that we're wrong, even if we did have standing. Which, correct me if I'm wrong, Andrew, but that is kind of the formula for every argument: is you shouldn't be able to do this. It should be dismissed. And if you do think that they should be able to do it, they're wrong. This is not a good constitutional argument. So there's no big development in terms of the court deciding these things, but it's moving through the standard process of. I think the next thing we expect is maybe for the court to decide. I don't know. The lawyer didn't make this clear. The lawyers didn't make this clear either, but they indicated that probably we would find out before they made any big movements on that. A decision about these other parties who filed to intervene to become parties of the lawsuit. So this was the Mark Elias, national election anti-integrity groups that wanted to come in and make the case to help out the Secretary of State and Governor Whitmer. And they argued they should be part of the lawsuit. I think that might be the first thing that gets decided, is whether they can join in or not. All right, thank you all again.
Thank you, Jonathan.
54 in each party. So I've been referring to the leadership on the other side of the aisle as the parity floor leader and the parity caucus chair and that kind of thing. But they wouldn't do that, and instead they made me the minority or Republican vice chair of judiciary. The joke was on them. That's kind of what I actually would prefer to spend my time on. And so that's been the committee that I've been the lead for my caucus on this whole term. And last year, one of the insider newspapers, MERS, what does it stand for? Michigan Information Research Service, something like that, named the chair of judiciary legislator of the year. And the reason is because I think something like 30% of the bills that were put through both chambers and signed by the governor, maybe it was just the ones that got through the House, but a large percentage of the bills that actually made it across some measure of a finish line last year came through judiciary. We were very busy. Now that we're in this new circumstance, and I guess I'll do a little bit of what my colleagues refer to as the boring lawyer stuff that I'm always trying to talk about. Now that we're here, I'm not sure that we're going to remain the most productive committee, but we do appear to be one of the committees that will kind of try to continue to churn out product while the House is tied. And some of that's because the boring lawyer stuff doesn't always tend to be as partisan as some of the things that I've updated you guys on in the past that came through my committee, having to do with firearms and civil rights and all kinds of other stuff. So today on the floor we had a couple of bills that had come through judiciary dealing with the rule against perpetuities. Even if you're a lawyer, you probably don't know exactly how that works because it's the most commonly failed answer on the bar exam. I was told this week that the California Supreme Court has ruled in some case that it is not malpractice to get the rule against perpetuities wrong as an attorney, which makes you wonder why they keep the rule if it doesn't actually matter. If it's not. Anyway, it doesn't appear to be a terribly controversial bill, but my caucus hadn't kind of worked through all of it, and when we went out into session after caucus and we needed more time to do it, instead the session just ended, and so the only thing we did today was a memorial resolution. I think that's, it's only been 2 weeks of being back in session, and really like 3 days, and I don't know, 5 bills or something have been on the agenda. And I'll just say, so far, the speaker has not figured out how he's going to kind of continue to be productive in a tied House without any kind of a power sharing agreement or some kind of, again, a recognition of the parity that we're in. Now, if we get to 55-55, the House rules will compel there to be some kind of a change, but 54-54, given that it's definitionally temporary, doesn't trigger the same kind of resetting of things.
So I can't tell you exactly what to expect, and I don't think anybody can. It's been, or it will be, as I say, or Jonathan said earlier, I think it might be April 16th, it looks like it's a Tuesday. I think that's the date of the special elections that will restore the House back to 56, I shouldn't say 56, back to 110 members. And if it is 56, 54, then we'll see. What's that? Oh, yeah, so that's when the special election is. So we'll be back to 110 members, and it'll either be back to a 56, 54 majority for one party or the other, or it'll be 55, 55, and then we'll go from there. In the meantime, I do think you're going to see things happening, at least at the committee level, which are, again, maybe at a little bit of a lower temperature. Just for example, yesterday in Judiciary, we heard testimony on a couple of bills. One, to allow Court of Appeals judges to swear in new attorneys. They currently can. Supreme Court justices can. Circuit judges can. Court of Appeals judges can't. But the statute that authorized the judges to do it in the first place predates the creation of the Court of Appeals. So probably that's the only reason that they're not in there. I know this isn't exactly the most interesting stuff, but this is what we're dealing with right now. I mean, a similar thing, the Uniform Partition of Heirs Act. If some, third generation great or grandchildren inherit property intestate and it's 100 acres in Kinderhook Township and, half the grandkids don't live in the state anymore and all of that, how do you sort all that out? The Uniform Partition of Heirs Act is designed to help with that. This is the boring lawyer stuff that maybe only a lawyer can love, but this is just kind of what we're dealing with. I expect that we'll begin to see some kind of a rhythm in the House, but I don't know what it's going to be like because, when it's tied, it's obviously anything that happens. Now, I don't know if until I started looking at the legislature myself, I don't know if I really processed this. But no matter how many members show up on a given day in the legislature, you have to have a majority of the elected and serving members vote for legislation or else it doesn't pass. So it doesn't, even if none of the Republicans showed up, the Democrats could not pass a bill by themselves. So they have to have some kind of cooperation from at least one member of the minority. And so we'll see if that kind of happens or if it continues to be kind of a grinding thing. I will say this, at the end of this 4 months of 108 members, when we're back to 110, it will only be about a 2-month window in which I would expect the budget to be kind of expected to be done. Now, the committees can be working on this. It could be that the Senate has larger than usual influence over the budget because they're operating at full strength already, and so whatever, they already look the way they're going to look. I don't know about that, but budget season always feels more compressed. It's always like everybody talks about it kind of dominating, a certain period of time, but already this is what people are talking about. I mean, I'm getting calls from local municipalities here in the district, asking about 911 service, which is something we've been trying to get trying to get help with in Hillsdale County, not 911 service, but 800 megahertz radios. We've been trying to get help for them for years. Thought we had something going in 2022, and then it got stripped out in the middle of the night, and the night that the budget actually passed. So we're still working on that. Support for either new or improved fire stations in Branch County and in Hillsdale County. A number of things that we would like to get into the budget, whether we're going to be successful or not. I mean, I don't know how many line items Jonathan had to sign on to. Did you have any of those last term? Yeah, me neither. So we'll see, or last year I should say. We'll see about that, but that will kind of dominate, I think, once we're back to 110. And then there will probably be not very much session until after August, and then even between August and November, I'd be surprised if there's more than 4 or 5 days. So it's going to be a strange year with probably relatively low productivity, but at least for a while, we won't have the same feature we had last term, which was a record number, a modern record number of bills passed with support from only one party. If you want, Randy, I was thinking that I would come back during the public comment to talk about this. Is that all right?
Sure.
Okay. Are there any questions? Yes.
I know the session just picked back up, but at first wind, if any, like either Senate or House has wind of the discussion around the homeschool
Oh, yeah.
bill and that type, we really want to be kept abreast of that.
Okay, yeah, so in case anybody doesn't know about this, the education chair in the House and more recently the state superintendent have suggested they'd like to have some kind of a registry for homeschool students. I don't know the number of states, but many states have some kind of a registry or even educational requirements or testing requirements. We don't have that. So just a couple of things about it. My caucus's vice chair, Jamie Green, education vice chair Jamie Green, is, I guess at this point, a former homeschool mom. I think both her kids are in, well, maybe not. One of her kids might still be homeschooled, and the other, I think, is at a Lutheran school. I was homeschooled, well, I guess Branch County likes me enough to elect me, so I mean, it doesn't seem like it's that big of an issue. But the argument that they're making is we don't know where these kids are, we're not aware of them. This is some kind of a safety issue, and this relates back. I'm sure many of you saw last month. Was it last month, or maybe it must have been last month. There were a couple of couples in the Lansing area, one of whom used to work for the Office of the Child Advocate. Who became foster parents and were kind of, I don't know the details of the allegations. It looks like some of the stuff is a little more like direct harm on the kids, but at least a lot of sort of neglect of a number of children who they got through the foster system, and they were kind of cycling them. You know, I don't think anybody can really get rich on the foster system, but they were doing it whatever they could to kind of get there. So they had dozens of kids through their homes, and they weren't really giving them good care. And so one of the claims that at the time the Attorney General made is that the fact that these kids were being characterized as being homeschooled sort of kept this from being noticed. I'm skeptical of that claim because the kids were in the foster system. And so, I mean, that should be a more intense supervision by the state than any kind of homeschool registry ever would be, and yet these kids were still being neglected and I think also abused, or at least that's the allegation in the criminal case against them now. But that was the kind of the most recent trigger for this conversation. And look, I also think it's reasonable to point out that there are many school districts, including our largest school districts in the state, or some of our largest school districts in the state, which struggle with chronic absenteeism. And I don't think that the state takes any particular action to deal with that problem, even to get them back into school at rates that move the needle, let alone check on their home environments and things like that, just because they're chronically absent. I saw one of our largest districts has chronic absenteeism as high as 77%. Wow. So I don't remember where I saw that source, but it was in a newspaper, or I think it actually was the Mackinac Center's CapCon. So it seems to me like it's a little bit of a distraction from any real issues, and it also sort of takes these one or two or small number of cases of bad actors who happen to be kind of homeschooling and sort of paints all homeschooling families with this brush of, they're hiding abuse or whatever through their homeschooling. Obviously there are abusive homeschool parents out there, but the idea that it's at some kind of a rate that would be actually addressed by this registry, compared with all the other factors going on, it doesn't make a lot of sense to me. And I grew up in a homeschool family, and so I knew many other homeschool families, and it certainly wasn't the norm. So, yes, we are aware of the issue.
Okay, so is it fair to ask at this stage, is that something that you would vote for or against?
The registry? I would vote against it.
Just have you on record.
Yeah, you sure. I mean, my brother's homeschooling his kids. My cousin's homeschooling his kids. It's when you grow up in that family, yeah. I guess some of those kids. Some people have had bad experiences as homeschoolers, but I'm not one of them. Any other questions? And thank you for noticing that here. You homeschool your kids?
I did.
You did? Yeah.
For 13 years.
You were homeschooled?
Yeah.
You do? Oh yeah, I had breakfast with you. Yeah. You did too? Yeah. There's a lot. Okay.
Schooling at home than I did at school.
You got better schooling at home? Was that in Garden City, Garden?
That's called a woodshed.
I got to pick the stick.
I don't want to ignore anybody. Any other questions? No? Okay, thank you.
Thanks, Andrew. on pretty late for you. Now it would be state committee time, but we're gonna zip past you a minute, and we're gonna go to District 5, and John Senior has a little something for that.
As you know, Randy and I represent Branch County on District 5. Thank you for going to the meeting Saturday. It's a train wreck. I don't know what else to say, it's just a train wreck.
I've cleaned a lot of crap up in my life. Can't be too bad.
The Republican Party is, you know, it just seems to keep finding ways to destroy ourselves. I don't know. I said at the last meeting, the best answer we got for elections this time around is through 5th District and is through the Branch County Republican Party. I think as we said earlier, if you're looking for any help from the MyGOP, they ain't gonna get the train on the tracks in time. So the June 20th meeting has been called. Thanks again, Jen, for going. You wanted me to read what JD put out?
Yep, paraphrase some of it.
This is the last report we just had from JD. He's our 5th District Chair. 5th District received the following question. What is happening with Christina Cromwell? There are so many conflicting reports out there. This morning, a friend sent me a summary put out by Patrick Colbeck touting the overwhelming support she has from state committee members. This is so distracting. It is distracting. The answer is there was a legitimate meeting on January 6th and the chair was removed. And co-chair, vice chair, Pago, is our acting chair. There was a legitimate meeting. There was an illegitimate meeting on January 13th, and the ex-chair was restored. It is problematic because right now we have leaders who should know better. This is a very small print, I'm sorry. Parting with the rules of the party to suit their agenda. If Christina Cromwell followed the rules and did what she promised, I, as would others, would not oppose her. To date, she has not. Colbeck, who I had very good interactions with, has decided that party rules don't matter. However, since election integrity depends upon the rules, that severely damages the legitimacy. Pastor Ralph Rabant, serving as a parliamentarian, made a statement on June 13th that the January 6th meeting was legitimate, according to his review of the process. He added, however, just because it is correct doesn't make it right. What Rabant did in that statement was to lend moral authority to those breaking the rules. This is especially troublesome as he is a pastor. No right or wrong there. His campaign for RNC rep is supported by the ex-chair and her supporters. So you can see why he might have a little interest in supporting them. Neither Pat Colbeck nor Bernadette Smith nor Ralph Rabant have called out the process violations that have occurred to warrant the vote for removal. Complete silence on wrongdoing. We are either a party that follows our own rules or not. If we do not follow our own rules, we will have no integrity with the outside world. As of today, there is a legitimate meeting occurring on January 20th to elect a new chair. State committee members are expected and needed to be there. Stay tuned. And as I understand it, the candidates for my GOP chair are Vance Patrick, is that right? Lena Epstein and Pete Hoekstra. Any others that you'd add to that?
No.
So that's your.
I'm not running.
I'm not running.
You got enough to do?
They had until tonight to file their paperwork, and I'm missing a Zoom about that, so.
But that's
the
who's,
only thing I heard, yeah.
that's who's considering, and they haven't filed their paperwork yet. So again, there'll be a meeting this Saturday to hopefully elect a new chair, and then the process is probably gonna meet in court somewheres, and again, I don't know, the train's definitely off the tracks. Any other?
How's state convention gonna work?
So it's a very good question. So as I was saying, or alluding to, you got state convention, you got elections coming up. It's a very concerning time that we all have our act together to get it done. So that, I'll just reference back to my first statement. Anything that's gonna happen, you better take a lot of control of it at your own GOP, your own county GOP, and you better be paying attention to 5th District. So, any questions on that?
You know, we have a chance to take a Senate seat this year, the U.S. Senate seat, and if there's infighting, it's just gonna make it a walk for the Democrats to refill that seat again.
Agreed. And there's much of that going on. I don't, you know, Jeannie spoke to a lot of that in the beginning of the things that have happened. I had made a statement before, if you picked any name in this room that was my GOP chair, any name, any one of you, and you put that behind it, that you are the chair of the Michigan Republican Party, knowing that we're a swing state, right? And some of the stuff like I heard when we were up there at state committee, people voting for her. Matt DePerno had made the case that he would not look within Michigan, not that he wouldn't look within Michigan, but he would be definitely outsourcing, trying to get funding for the MyGOP from outside of the state, from people from other states and places that have concern for this being a swing state and us needing to win elections. To me, I told Randy before, if I was in my GOP chair, I think I could make about 10 phone calls and raise $1 million. Not because of me, because people have skin in the game of Michigan. And to see the funding of the MyGOP world. I got nothing against Christina if you like her, but we're going backwards. Like I say, we're going backwards.
I think the big three would be supporting the GOP. I mean, they're on a scale to lose a lot of jobs and money in this state.
Again, there just ought to be resources coming into the Michigan Fund, and they're not. And like Jeannie said, you know, I mean, she basically told all the big donors in Michigan, we don't need you and we don't want you. You know, there was a time and a place there at state committee. I'm gonna go in, like, I didn't vote for it, all right? But well, you guys remember as a party though, all them emails going around of we sent you to vote a certain way. Well, and I'm not trying to hide under that. I'm just saying that it's back to square one. If you break it, we got to fix it. So, a lot of us grassroots party people liked those speeches. You know, she was a fire-breathing speaker, but she ain't producing the results now that she's there. So. Anything else, Randy?
Nope. Thank you, John. Okay, Jeannie, from what you've seen and heard, do you have more for us?
Real quick, just clean up notes here. What's next? Trump has been calling the RNC, as of a couple of weeks ago, was multiple times daily, and I don't mean his team, I mean him himself. So he's got, you know, he had the debate, he had the caucus, and this Michigan thing is big on Trump's to-do list. He needs a functioning Michigan Republican Party, and this ain't it. And so Trump has and I heard this from National Committee Man, so Trump has a very big interest in putting this behind us as soon as possible. So, propaganda, don't believe for a second that this is anti-Trump, globalist, blah, 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 fill in the gross blank, with, you know, an effort to hinder Trump. No, it's quite the opposite. Somebody just asked me, is she stupid? No, this is planned destruction. Okay, if you look at unauthorized one, I won't bore you with a speech about it, but dig in. There are 7 states. Michigan is one. All swing states who are going through the same thing. They all started off with, they're all spread out from unauthorized one. This is planned takedown of state GOPs. Okay, she calls us the Uniparty. Check out unauthorized.1 if you haven't. You know, let's see. Guys, listen, you're down here in bright red territory. I'm so jealous. Jonathan, to tell you, I have a little different story up there in Calhoun County. We have to be careful to let our brains lead our passions instead of the other way around. Christina, John's exactly right. She gives these powerful speeches, and we all feel so patriotic. We just want to go home and eat our apple pie and wave our flags. I have, but people don't lead with their brains. I have, I love Epic Times. I've got like their premium, platinum, whatever, subscription, annual. They put out a hit piece on us with all of Christina's talking points. And when people who were in the room on January 6th rebutted Epic Times' false garbage reporting on it, instead of, your Epic Times guy, I don't know, I'm making this up, this guy says to the person in the room, well, I think I'm going to believe Epic Times over you. They're just reporters. They just get their information. So we need to be really careful that we're not falling into our own cults of personality, okay? Senator Colbeck has been a huge disappointment on this issue. There are others. I'm not gonna name names and then we all start a civil war, but we can't just because somebody we like makes a statement, that can't be the end of it. If it's important enough to know about, it's important enough to learn about. So, as for state conventions, that was all approved, all the rules and everything were approved before, so state convention, it's all been paid for, well, unless it hasn't, we get lied to about that. State convention is going to go ahead as planned. Don't panic if a decision from RNC hasn't come down yet. We have really good info that as soon as, there hasn't been anything to say yet because we haven't named a new chair yet. So kind of the minimum they can make a statement is after Saturday. That's the minimum. They have to make a decision on which delegates they're going to seat. And so they're going to have to step in because of they try to stay out of local affairs, state affairs to the degree that they can. But when we start sending delegates on, then they have to make a decision about what seats, who they're going to seat. At the end of this month, there's a RNC meeting. Every every state party chair is an automatic member of the RNC. We will have a chair. Christina's claiming to be chair, and they were hoping that they will make a decision about who to seat. I hope they make it Monday or Sunday. They may make it at the end of the month when their meeting is. They're going to have to make it after that, or going into that convention. So stay tuned. Don't panic. PD filing deadline is May 7th at 4 o'clock. You do that at your local clerk or your county clerk, either one. It's at 4 o'clock no matter how late the office is open. Okay, so if your county clerk's office is open till 5, you be there, have your paperwork filled out, turned in, notarized by 4 o'clock. Okay, that gives the staff time to process it before they go home. I think that's it. Do you guys have any other questions? I know I talked a lot earlier. What's that? May 7th, PD filing day. And then you can register. That's to be on the ballot. Everybody in this room should be on the ballot. But if you recruit somebody after that date, chances are you can run as a write-in and still win. These generally are not competitive seats. So, yeah.
So 2 things. What happens if the RNC decides that Karamo is chair of the state convention?
I'm going to kill myself.
And then second, what legal action is being prepared?
So there is presently a legal filing that was done on Tuesday because Martin Luther King Day had the offices closed on Monday, and there was no action to take a stand against until they had their meeting last weekend. So on the first day that the courts were open, a filing was made this last Tuesday. Another lawsuit is being prepared, but, and this is where Caramo's team, I don't know where they're going. Their lawyer says he's going to take this all the way to the Supreme Court. That's nonsensical. Once the RNC steps in, no court is going to undo the RNC. The RNC is a private organization. They choose who their members are, how their members are chosen. The RNC is going to be the final arbiter on this. Court action beyond that would just be laughed at. Okay. Jonathan, you have any? rebuttal on that part?
You want me to?
I love talking to Jonathan. We argued for an hour the other day about the definition of the word number. I feel like my IQ goes up several points every time I talk to him, and we do see things a little bit differently on this. So yeah.
Look, I will add, like, because people are going to be interested, you're going to follow this. I'm going to try to stick with what I said earlier, that ultimately what matters is stay strong as a county. Don't fight about it too much.
Yeah, let me
But I will give like a couple of things to consider that, you know, Gina, I don't fully agree on all this stuff. One thing is that the people who organized the plan to remove Christina, I just think this is something for people to keep in mind about the organization you're part of, and I don't know, maybe go home and just think about what you want to see in the world. But it can simultaneously be true that people did everything by the book, followed the rules, and it can still be wrong to do it. And you know, I would argue that what we've seen with elections in Michigan is the Democrats, if they need to cheat to win, they'll do that. But all things being equal, they would rather just pass rules that make it so that doing it by the rules gets the same outcome as cheating used to, right? The rules are useless. So I'm not a big person on saying, like, just because we did things by the books, you know, that's the right thing to do. And I think that people should consider, right, that like, no matter how you want to parse it, the state committee has 106 members. At the meeting that one group decided to gather at, 40 of them said we would like Christina not to be chair anymore. At the other meeting, 59 actual members said we would like Christina to continue to be chair. You know, I'm just saying there's also a political dimension to this. And my bigger concern, to bring it, you know, away from, I'm on like danger territory as though I'm a supporter of one side or the other. But my bigger concern is that on the RNC piece in particular, I know some of the people who organized the meeting told people that if we take this action and we oust her, we have it all lined up. We've talked to all the people at the RNC. They'll come out within 2 days and it'll be a done deal. And I happen to be privileged that I'm friends with somebody who he is friends with the general counsel of the RNC, and I called him and asked him to ask this question. And you know, my concern is that behind the scenes, people who were coordinating this in Michigan were lying to people to get support of this, because it is not true that the general counsel ever said that they were going to take action within a couple days. Matter of fact, they took a pretty hard line that, you know, it wasn't their job if it's truly disputed, etc. Right? So I get worried about these things. I think RNC probably should have a mechanism to resolve these things. It doesn't seem like they had great mechanisms, so they're stuck trying to figure out, you know, what do we do? Might be in a couple days, might be at the end of this month. But then, like, last thing on that point is we also can't count too much on, I would dispute, Jeannie, that the court's going to honor it. I mean, what we saw in Hillsdale was the corollary of this. The state party said, we're going to recognize one group. And then a court said, we don't care if you're a state party. We don't care about the political question. We're going to decide who the leadership of Hillsdale County GOP is, right? That could happen again at a state level. The big takeaway that I want everybody to think about if you're having conversations with people, maybe it resolves quickly. No matter which way it resolves, I would like it to resolve quickly. But I'm kind of like back to this Abraham Lincoln responding to Horace Greeley. If people remember this is like the famous statement of, you know, when people look at it, some people very derisively about how, oh, he wasn't actually against slavery or something. But his point was he was responding to a letter or an editorial accusing him of not having strong conviction. He's saying, I did have strong conviction. If I could save the Union by doing this, I would do this. If I could save the Union by doing this, I would do this, right? And that's kind of like my attitude about state party. I think that if we had done nothing and it had been poorly run from now through the election cycle, what we could have expected is probably the already existing slow drip of Michigan Republican parties not working very well. Okay. Now I think we've potentially opened ourselves to another risk, which is if there's a lawsuit that goes on for all of the election cycle and the story is dominated as Michigan Republican Civil War continues, that's really bad. So whatever we have to do, you know, and this is as somebody who has talked to both sides and said, like, is anybody interested in backing down? Like, anybody put your guns away? No, you know, so I'm not saying I have an answer for it, but I think that's the attitude that people should adopt. It's not, you can't have strong views and say who's right and wrong. And I certainly, I spent most of last year having pretty personal conversations with Christina that took the form of like I like you, I supported you a lot, I'm worried about X, Y, Z, trying to be helpful on this, and then not, and then being disappointed, right? But anyway, back to the first point is stay focused on Branch. I wouldn't get too sucked into it, but we'll see where it all goes.
I have a question.
I do too.
It's almost done.
Jonathan to answer and Jeannie to answer, because I do think what you said was very important there. We could have our lines drawn in the sand, but my opinion would be the ruling from the RNC is what ought to stand. And I don't even know which way it'll go, but we got to come back together.
Even then, right? So like, I'll get myself in hot water here because I was involved in the Hillsdale situation, right? And at one of the conventions, John Smith got a letter signed by Ron Weiser, the chair of the party, saying, we recognize your group as. And some people would look at it and say, oh, I was aligned with those people, so I should be happy about this. The first thing I said to John Smith is, why would you do that? Why would you ever imply that Ron Weiser has the say over who's in charge of Hillsdale County's GOP, right? So what I would say is that if the RNC makes a decision and they do it in accordance with some process they have, which I've been told doesn't exist, right? Then by all means, right? Like we're kind of an extension of that. But if what we get is just Ronna McDaniel is friends with somebody, and so she writes a letter and does this, is that how we want our party to run? I don't. So I don't know if that's helpful or not.
Jeannie?
So to John's earlier point, and he missed this part of it, but remember I told you I was very reluctant to hop on with this because we don't need the distraction. This is not what we do. We are a local partner. Until she started putting state committee members' personal finances at risk, we got to stop the bleed. And so that's where I am on that.
Is there anything that can be done to vet these people? If you're gonna be in a place hold a position that high that you could do that much harm, is there not some kind of background checks we can do on these folks?
Chair, can we continue with the meeting and have this discussion afterwards? A lot of us have children at home that need to see us before bedtime.
No, we're running late. Trying to bring information to you from the people that are leadership in our areas, and so you know them. But we do need to get moving, and we do have one more part of the meeting yet, and that is for the good of the order. Anyone can speak, and it is on the agenda that they can speak for up to 2 minutes. We are going to go through that. Welcome to speak. I'll try to move it along, and we're going to wrap this up. So who wants to start? Karen.
Nice and fast. First of all, I believe that what was done is done at the state committee. Should it have been done? Should it have gotten that far? No, right? Maybe somebody shouldn't have been elected. Maybe things should have been handled ahead of time with censures, whatnot. The reality is done. And I don't care right now because the state committee's handling it. We have a foothold in Branch County that is going to be massive. And we have an opportunity just to ignore. We haven't needed them and haven't used them anyway. I mean, you think about our last election cycles, looking for signs, phone numbers, and we don't need them. We don't need that distraction. I keep in touch with emails on both sides because I also watch MSNBC when I'm drinking. So I mean, you do both things to get educated. I've read the bylaws. Every time I see an argument come up, I go back and look at the bylaws, right? Have debates about it. But as far as Branch County is concerned, we don't care. I mean, that is my opinion. We trudge forward. Don't let this be a distraction. Don't let people talk to you about it in a negative way. Roll like water off of your back. It does not bother us one bit.
Thank you. Who's next?
10 seconds.
Julie, 10 seconds.
I think there's a lot more child abuse going on in the public schools than any homeschool.
Yes.
Agreed.
Who's next? Denver.
I have letters in the back if anybody would like one. I'm having a kickoff and fundraiser to start the campaign. Also, if you go to jenniferworks.com, it went live today with more info.
Thank you. Mark.
So, sorry, Betsy, but February
we're having Chrisanne Hall in Florida. She's a constitutional attorney, and she was a former prosecutor down there. Sheriff Max out of Arizona. They're both educators of the Constitution. I'm planning on having her here in Branch County. We don't have a place nailed down yet, but on February 16th, on the 17th of February, she's in Hillsdale at 2 different locations, is the plan. So I hope to have some more information probably in the next week or so about that.
Invite our commissioners, please.
Yes, they are on the list.
Thank you, Mark. Who's next? Stairs.
We are looking for donations for the pizza for next month, if anybody is interested in helping with that too.
Very good.
So that we don't have to have.
Andrew.
I'm running for Supreme Court. I've talked here about it before, so I don't want to go on at length about it, but I have some little pamphlets here. I'll leave some up at the table if I may. Would appreciate all your support.
Thank you, Andrew. Who's next?
Okay, I guess I might as well add, no one's running against me right now anyway, so, you know, get in while the getting's good.
Here you go. Who's next? All right. If there's nobody else, then I would support a motion.
I move to adjourn. Second.
Jennifer does, she does. All in favor of adjournment? Aye.